For today's What If at Brandywine, we're asking, what if Washington believed the reports that the British were running a flank maneuver on his right? What if he had prepared for that? This is my take on it. A lot of people blame Washington for not believing that there was a huge British force coming down on his right and that he was getting flanked again just like he was in New York. Imagine you're Washington. That is a very plausible scenario. But could this be just another machination of General Howe? The flanking maneuver would require a march of over 25 miles prior to the battle. That's unlikely. A far more plausible scenario would be one where Howe manufactured the lie that he was doing that to get Washington to take troops off the Brandywine and place them on his right. Then the full British Army could attack across the Brandywine, more lightly defended. And with the army here panicking, the rebels would just run away. Not a bad plan. As a ruse, that could work. Washington has decided not to fall for that ruse. No one's going to march 25 freaking miles around and attack it with an exhausted army. But in this what if scenario, we're saying, well, what if Washington said, yeah, he would just do something like that. Let's defend and expect an attack from upstream. Let me make a few more adjustments based on this assumption. Greene's full command is now facing the suspected enemy advance. Likewise, Maxwell's troops, the cloud of skirmishing Minutemen in front of them, will be in the woods north of Birmingham Hill. Now, let us begin. It's turn 4, midday. There are 5 turns left in a day. Let's see how this goes. Now here it can be seen that Knyphausen has moved up on the Brandywine, threatening there. And Cornwallis and Howe have entered from the north. Today I'm drinking tea. I just reached down into Boston Harbor and scooped up a cup of tea. All right, turn 5, mid-afternoon. Okay, through the early afternoon, Howe and Cornwallis were unable to significantly contact Greene's forces. They fought a slow withdrawal. Now the British player would notice that the Colonials player has flipped over this block and flipped this spent block back over. So he can guess that that's the bags and they have been unpacked. Furthermore, that this artillery is able to bombard. Okay, now we're at turn 6, late afternoon. Tastes like freedom. Now if the colonial player can keep getting the chit draw that he needs, obviously using alter turn order rolls and so forth, he can slowly fall back and prevent the British from getting at him. But now that he's unpacked bags, he can't fall back forever. Here we are, turn 6, late afternoon. Knyphausen's artillery fires again. Dinner time combat. Let's see what's on the table for dinner. First, the cavalry. Alright, the battle reports come in. Pulaski's cavalry held for a bit, but then they had to fall back. Here, the Minutemen did what they were set out to do. They really did some damage to the British Household Guard, and then they fell back. At which point, Maxwell's light troops were able to finish off the Household Guard for the day. You see them over here. They have been eliminated. And the rest of Greene's line took some damage and fell back. Their fighting withdrawal has heated up and started causing some damage. And General Knox is getting the American artillery back into action. And now it's turn 7, early evening, and the American position is still holding. But the British are getting frustrated. What will happen next? Knyphausen's artillery wheels and fires across Chad's Ford. Alright, now things are happening. The colonial troops here in the woods, after the sound thrashing they gave the British Guard, have been left alone. In the center, the British Grenadiers push hard, and on Howe's right, Abercrombie's light and the Hessians push hard. Here, Nipalsen has advanced a couple detachments of troops along the Brandywine. They're not crossing, but their field of fire reaches across and will trouble any retreating or repositioning of colonial forces. Now this has become possible because Nash's North Carolinians have been called over to support the drive across the Brandywine here. And down here, Nipalsen has crossed Chad's Ford and Piles Ford below it and is pushing. Sullivan is throwing in all his reserves and he's attempting to hold. And after the late afternoon dust-up, both sides' cavalry elements spend some time recovering. The dicey bit about the cavalry is if they push combat to the point that one of them gets eliminated, now the other cavalry unit is free to roam around unmolested. Alright, now as to be seen here, all across the Brandywine, Nipalsen's troops were thrown back, and it was costly. Stern's Hessians and Ferguson's Scotsmen were thrown back so violently, they're out of commission. It is late evening. There is time for one final effort. Alright, now here the colonial forces have slipped out of the nooses, the flank attacks, that Howe and Cornwallis have set up. Nipalsen has completely fell back from his assault across Chad's Ford. But a successful artillery fire damaged the colonial forces, and as they fell back, the British infantry surged across the Brandywine. Refreshed, the two groups of enemy dragoons battle it out. In the near total darkness on Rondelet Hill, the combat is bloody, but ultimately inconclusive. The colonials finally lose their first block, while Nipalsen loses another block. So now we come to the night turn. What would happen? At this point, Washington chooses to save his army, pack up his bags, and fall back. But in good order. Because tonight the British troops would rest up, recover their strength, and in the morning the American bags are right here and very threatened and will probably be lost. So rather than lose everything, Washington elects to save his army, pull back. There's no chance of stopping the British at the Brandywine anymore. Now the Continental Army did as well as it did because Greene really held up the British as they tried to enter from the north. And Sullivan completely stopped Nipalsen's attack here on the American left. But in the center he was able to get across, and actually the American baggage is within his field of fire. So there you have it. Now next time I play this, I'm going to try a what if, the same what if. What if Washington called the bluff? But this time, okay, what if he really was bluffing? What if everyone's coming in from down here and it's only lightly defended? Now I can see Howe and Cornwallis's original wisdom of saying it's going to be too costly to cross the Brandywine unnecessarily. It'll be easier to march our armies 25 miles around. Well, what do you think? See you on our next Fighting Friday. Alright folks, let's go forward with a final analysis. You see, when I play, I don't always play by the rules. The official rules. I say if you pack up and bug out, your opponent gets a minor victory. The actual rules are a little different. If you bug out, your opponent gets double the victory points. So under my system, Washington bugged out, that's a minor defeat. But if you go by point loss, the Americans have lost 3 points while causing 14 points of losses to the British. The Americans packed up and bugged out. The British double that, so it goes from 3 points to 6 points. Did I say 3 points or 4 points? It's 3 points for a regular block. So that gets doubled to 6 points. And here are the British 14 points. The Americans have 14 victory points, the British 6. That, my friends, is an American victory. The congressional player could have simply looked at that and said, I can bug out and I'll win. If I stay and fight and try to get a super victory, it's more than likely he'll capture my bags. The Congressional Army is going to get beaten. It might even break tomorrow. No, at this point, the best result is a controlled retreat. And that's what Washington does. And just like in history, depending which side you're on, you can say the Americans got defeated, they bugged out, they had to fall back. Or you could take the other side and say, hey, the British took a lot of losses and didn't destroy the American army, the colonial army. So, apparently we won. These are the sort of things that are better discussed over a pint, in a pub, discussing the battle. And in the meantime, guard your bags.